Welcome to the Straighten Your Crown Black Men and Mental Health panel discussion. This is the second day of Black History Week, and where we are celebrating the stories, the resilience, and varied accomplishments of Black men and youth throughout our region. Today, we are talking about Black men and mental health. I'm Bishop Ernest Moore, the pastor of the Destiny Community Church in South Richmond, and I am glad to be here with some strong Black voices this evening. Today, our expert panelists will discuss the impacts of COVID-19 on Black men and youth health, relationships, and every other aspect of life. They will help us understand how COVID-19 intersects or connect with racial and historical trauma, which has been a threat to mental health. Even without any events this year, Black male mental health has already been suffering, and Black people are statistically less likely to seek help. But you know, healing is possible, and it is important to treat ourselves with love and compassion, even as we fight for justice. The Boys and Girls Club of Metro Richmond and Greater Richmond SCAN are excited to bring to you tonight's conversation, Black Men and Mental Health, Revitalizing Black Men's Resilience. Let me introduce our expert panelists. We have all the way from the Samuel DeWitt Proctor School of Theology at Virginia Union, the capable Dr. Nathaniel West, who is an assistant professor there and also a licensed professional counselor. We have Brother Olufemi Shepsu, who is a school social worker at the Richmond Public Schools. Brother Eric Thornton, a child and family advocate with the Greater Richmond SCAN. And last but not least, Mr. Philip Moore, an administrative trainer at Mending Fences and a professional basketball referee and mentor. We are in for a treat this evening, and I just want to jump right into our discussion. Good evening to all of our panelists.
Good evening, brothers.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening.
It is so great to be with you. And I just want, as we open up, if each one of you would like to take a few minutes to talk about yourself and your work in relationship to Black male mental health. So I'll start with Eric because he's, well, we have Dr.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, Dr. West, go ahead.
No. Okay, I thought you were
Well, this is Eric. It's going back and forth, so we just see. But Dr. West, go ahead because you're featured.
Oh, okay. I will. First of all, thank you so very much. I appreciate the invitation, and I'm grateful to be here with my brothers to discuss this important subject. I work, as you know, at the School of Theology, but I have a part-time counseling business that I'm able to see clients with, and the overwhelming majority of my clients are African American males, which I am grateful for because many of them, if not all of them, are particularly seeking out an African American therapist because there are few of us in terms of their availability. So in that particular practice, you know, I get to just journey with them on their journey to what I call their road to wholeness. And they come with various issues and concerns. And I think one of the things that makes it more comfortable in the practice is that even though, I'm a trained therapist, our sessions are more like a conversation. And so I think that helps them to relax and to be able to share and to just be able to, open up about what's going on with them. So I'm grateful for that. It's another way for me to contribute to our community.
Thank you. I like that, on that road to wholeness and conversation, really the importance of that. Brother Eric Thornton, why don't you go next?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Eric Thornton. I'm a child, Thornton, I'm sorry. I'm a child and family advocate with the Greater Richmond SCAN. At this moment in time, I'm working with the youth from the ages of 3 to 5 at the preschool age. With them, the work that we do is very important as we focus on the development of the brain. And with them being so young, and experiencing traumas or whatnot, we want to go ahead and impact them as early as we can so we can treat that brain development as they continue to grow, so they can overcome the traumas that they may have faced as a baby. As we all know, the body keeps a score. It's something that we've learned as social workers, but I really enjoy, families and children has always been my goal my goal in my community that I love working with. I love going back to work within the community I grew up within Richmond. I have a background in intensive in-home as well, therapeutic day treatment and therapeutic foster care. So, I'm all about the families. I'm all about strengthening families, especially the Black families. So.
Thank you for your work, Brother Thornton, for strengthening the Black families. My brother, Brother Shepsu.
All right, good evening again, brothers. I've been a 27-year employee at Richmond Public Schools. I'm currently at MLK Middle School. I've been at some of the tougher schools in the division: Armstrong, Woodville, George Mason. And I also serve the education wing down at the city jail as far as my role at MLK Middle School. And a lot of my work has really been focused in on Black male development, Black male empowerment groups, inside of the schools, and just making sense out of our historical record here, in Richmond and Virginia, being the, I guess, the ground zero for the transatlantic slave trade, and just what, enslavement has done to us as men, particularly as it relates to our mental health, our physical, and our spiritual health, as well as our overall identity as being a man. What is a Black man? What are some of the challenges that we're facing with the school to prison pipeline, institutionalized racism, the high dropout rate, and really the aftermath of the crack cocaine epidemic that was really a thorn in our side for a number of years, starting back in the mid to late 80s, and just giving these young brothers a context for all of those things, but also let them realize that no matter what pain that they're dealing with in their families or their communities, that we have examples and we have models of strong men that have been able to beat those challenges, break those cycles, and become strong husbands, fathers, warriors, and nation builders. So that's pretty much my role. That's what I do, at MLK Middle School.
Thank you for that. That is so powerful. When you were talking, my mind just, I don't know, associated with Sankofa. Go back and get it. Go back and get our brothers from that trauma historically as we move forward, so that our men, because we were the original nation builders, and now it is time for us to do it again. Thank you, Brother Shepsu. Brother Moore.
Good evening, everybody. I want to thank Greater Richmond SCAN for having me on tonight. I'm glad to be amongst my brothers in this circle of brotherhood on tonight and join in on this dialogue. My work has started out in Richmond Public Schools. I worked for them for about 15 years as an instructional assistant. And during that time, I was used to deal with children who had behavioral challenges, helping them process through traumatic moments, having moments of crisis. And that work kind of led me to my work that I'm currently doing with Mending Fences, LLC. I started off as a behavioral aid counselor, doing one-to-one behavioral aid work with students who had IEPs and had behavioral issues. And I've been with the company for a few years now, and I've moved up to where my current position is as an administrative trainer, where I'm training the staff on how to effectively provide behavior aid counseling to our clients. As it was also mentioned that I also am a professional basketball official, where I provide mentorship to officials who are trying to matriculate through that industry. I always say it's the one job in America where people can come to your job and tell you how to do your job. It's a thankless job. And so that can affect the mental state of the official. So my work is to prepare them mentally how to deal with a thankless job. So thank you for having me again, and I'm looking forward to the dialogue.
I like that. Having those, and that's just the plight of, for a lot of Black males, it's just a thankless life. So showing them how to prepare mentally for that is tremendous work. Thank all of you all for sharing, and we are just excited about your work. Since COVID-19 has been here, how have Black men been impacted as you are continuing to do your work? Anyone want to start? I would like to hear from each one of you.
Well, I guess I can take a stab at it. I think within the school division, we've been, pretty much shut down right now. But however, school social workers and some of our support staff are still going out to make home visits and meeting some of the needs of what's happening inside of with our families right now. And some of the young brothers I've talked to since I've been out since September, it's a lot of isolation. They want to know what's going on with the teachers in the school, or they may ask, have you seen some of the friends that they may have been coalescing with throughout their last school year before we got out in March, and just not really having that face-to-face engagement. And I think initially with the kids, no one wants to really be in school. If I can get out here for a week or two, or they look at it as a vacation, but this is an extended time period, and not having that camaraderie, the face-to-face contact, being able to get out of your environment. I know when school started back in September, a lot of the courts in Church Hill were beefing. So a lot of gunplay was going on. People would get shot, the whole nine. But when that is happening during the regular school year, the children can leave that environment and they can come to school. But since we're shut down, they've got to stay there and deal with that type of environment that's going on, on a daily basis. So I think that can cause some depression, anxiety, those types of issues are happening with the kids. And so that's one of the things that we've seen, inside of the school division so far.
Thank you.
I could say from my standpoint, much as to what Mr. Shepsu said, it's been stressful. For myself, it's been stressful. My fiance and I, we just welcomed brand new twins back in August. So, raising them and two others within this COVID pandemic, it's been difficult because you can't travel as much as you'd like to. We're pretty much hands-on with a lot of things. We want to expose everyone to, the historical content around us in the Richmond area, outside of Richmond as well, Washington, D.C., the different monuments, every historical mark, especially the Black historical marks. That's what we like to put an emphasis on, because we want to teach our kids, and even with the recent protests that went on within the past year as well, a lot of questions are arising, and everyone is having these questions about what's going on, like, why are these people doing this, and you want to be able to teach these kids, the youth, and not just within our home, but outside of the home as well, about what's going on. But, just being stuck in the home at the same time, it's kind of like they referenced the Twilight Zone yesterday. You know, it's like the same thing every day. Nothing is changing. You know, but deep down, what we have to do is remain resilient and knowing that we're going to come out of this at the end. You know, historically, we've been put through the test. You know, we've all know that, especially as Black men. I know for a young Black brother myself, you know, my father educated me on a lot of things that went on back during the 50s. And even before that, you know, he made sure that I had the education to back up whatever I wanted to do in life, because he told me, he said, nothing's going to be easy for you to, you know, as a Black male to succeed. So with that, you know, just keeping that in the background, you know, just recognizing that we have to remain resilient throughout this entire process, because with this COVID pandemic, we're going to have probably at least 10 years where we're going to have things constantly changing. And these kids that are sheltered right now, you know, staying inside the home, we don't know what kind of trauma and stress that, you know, that they're facing. And, you know, us as mental health workers, we're gonna have a lot to do on, you know, it's gonna be fun, you know, challenging at the same time. So it's definitely gonna be something to look forward to.
You know, Brother Thornton, I want to note this because you talked about the stress level of Black male parenting. And oftentimes, when we talk about parenting of Black children, we only think about Black female parenting, but Black male parenting is key. And I like how you layered it, because the other thing that reality we need to debunk, as if Black men don't have fathers. You talked about from your father to you and how you assume the responsibility to educate. And right now, while we are, as Brother Shepsu said, we are dealing with this social isolation. We have to be very sensitive and mindful of the stress level of Black male parenting. And listen to them and give them space to share that. So that was monumental, I thought, and I wanted to highlight that. Dr. West?
I agree with my brothers in terms of the social isolation, how it has impacted. And one thing I want to say, you know, unfortunately in this country, the impact that COVID-19 has on people, I think has a lot to do with their social economic status. Because, you know, your social economic status, depending on where it is, gives you, you know, a different level of privilege. You know, so for instance, you know, I recognize that I'm middle class, right? And so, and I also recognize I work a white collar job. And so for me to, you know, so when everything hit, you know, I had a space in my house. I had an internet. You know, I have a laptop, so my job can continue. You know, even counseling and teaching. But for those who don't have certain social economic status, that brings an added burden. In addition to pre-COVID, we were already fighting social injustices, right? So we already were fighting the social injustice. So this even brings more. And so then you are, you know, kind of forced, or for some people, their job forces them to kind of be at home. One thing when Brother Shepsu says this isolation, I have recognized, so I have clients that are college students. They've been isolated. They are dealing with depression and, you know, all of those things, because, you know, I was talking to one yesterday and he was very specific. He was talking about the fact that, you know, this is his senior year. One of the things he enjoyed about being on campus was that was the opportunity for him to develop and understand himself and who he is. And now being an only child, he's at home, you know, and so, and the friends that he had on campus are all over the country. And although, you know, we try to encourage people to, you know, do phone calls and do Zoom, it's still not the same as being physically present with people. So the social isolation piece does, regardless, I have clients who are older that still face the same thing. And what was interesting to me is because even some of my clients who are introverts by nature, they still want to be around people. They still have a need to be around and with people. And so a lot of the things that I've been dealing with has been stress and anxiety around a lot of things, right? About the job market, about the whole COVID-19, right? Access to vaccinations, access to health, all of those kinds of things are just, just bringing, I think, it heightens what is already there. So if you had any kind of mental health conditions pre-COVID, then during COVID, I think it just exasperates it. And if it and for some men who didn't even recognize they had it pre-COVID, it is manifest, and they may not even recognize it even during COVID, but it's manifested in negative ways. And the sad part about that is the brunt of the negativity is manifested towards the people that they're in relationship and they love the most.
Right, right. You have contextualized it really well for us, because we talk about the racism, but classism is what racism has morphed into. And so during COVID-19, all of the things that Black males have already been dealing with are now heightened, and especially in those workforce inequities that they were already dealing with. Because as you stated, and thank you for your transparency, you have a white collar job, but what about all of the other Black males that don't have that privilege, not because they're not qualified, but because they don't get the opportunity? And we need to be clear on that. It's not that our Black males are inadequate and they are uneducated. They just cannot, they don't have a lot of opportunities because of the disqualifiers. Thank you. Last but not least, Brother Moore, how has COVID-19 heightened Black male, impacted Black males?
Well, I truly concur with my brothers who have greatly outlined the negative impacts, the traumatic impacts that it has had on the Black man. When you look historically at us as Black people in this country, we have dealt with trauma since we've been here. But one thing we've had is the power to create what wasn't during traumatic times, to create what has never been seen. And one thing I'm seeing from a positive spin is that COVID-19 has motivated and cultivated the inner hustler in the Black man. So I'm seeing Black men create new entrepreneurial efforts, being social media influencers, creating that business that they wouldn't have prior to COVID-19, but now COVID-19 has pushed that creative button within them that's in us innately as Black people. So we're kind of looking inside, because we got nothing but ourselves in the house, right? So we're looking inwardly and say, what is that in me that I've been kind of not going after that I can go after now? And now we're creating, we're tapping into that creativity.
Thank you for highlighting that positivity, because a lot of times it is during crisis that oppressed people thrive. And in some sense, when you say that, I thought about how many Black males are now investing in stock market that GameStop had to shift, and all the things that are going on. And that is because when we get in a crisis, as you said, that inner hustler come out, which is really a good commentary about the 80s when the drugs impacted our community. And Brother Shepsu and I, we're products of the 80s. When you look at the drug scene, a lot of times we look at it as a negative, but no, we went from surviving to trying to thrive so that our families could have posterity. And so thank you for featuring that. I want to keep the conversation moving because we're really getting some great things. And I want to talk about or ask a question. Can you speak to the toxic masculinity in the Black community amid the COVID-19 impact? Toxic masculinity.
Well, one of the things that when you deal with toxic masculinity, my mind goes to social constructs. We were kind of conditioned since coming in to the world on how a man was supposed to be. And some of that conditioning wasn't quite good for us as men. We were told, you know, don't cry, or you wear blue, girls wear pink. And it was those social constructs that kind of caused us to hide who we really were authentically. And a lot of times I was listening to someone present on this particular subject matter, and he asked the question, he said, if I told you that male babies cry more than female babies, would you believe it? And for some of us, that would be hard for us to believe, but it's actually true, you know, that we cry more than women, you know, but it's okay. And we have to make that healthy and normalize it, especially during these times when we're dealing with trauma. It's okay to take a moment and cry about what you're dealing with, you know, as a man. But I think we have to break down those social constructs, kind of unlearn some of the things we've learned and learn some new things that we need to know for this time.
Thank you for letting us know how we have been dehumanized as males through this experience of the slave trade.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, brother, that was very powerful, Brother Moore. And I think as we're moving forward, you know, in the 21st century, we really just got to have a dialogue, you know, with our other brothers across the entire United States, really throughout the entire diaspora, on just setting the tone for just what our manhood is. Because as Brother Moore, Bishop Moore was just saying just a few minutes ago, that whole enslavement process really has compromised really how we view ourselves as men, how we view our women, and how we relate to the outside world. And those negative European paternalistic images that was beaten into us has become self-sustaining for 401 years. And with that being said, you know, the buck breaking, the castrations, the being tarred and feathered, the lynchings, Black men have faced the bulk of the assaults from white America because we represent the husband, the father, the warrior, and the nation builder. But with those powerful terms comes a lot of confusion just based off of that conditioning. So I think really that's like the founding frontier for us to really take the bull by the horns, if you will, and have those big boy grown up conversations just amongst ourselves.
Yes.
And have a off the cuff conversation so that we can identify just really who we are and what our ancestors, and most importantly, what does God Almighty want us to do as Black men?
Yes.
Yeah. I have to concur with my brothers on that. The toxic masculinity is a direct result of how we've been formed, and we have, you know, we've just been formed in wrong ways. You know, we've been dehumanized in a lot of the ways that were taught us was just a way to control us. You know, and then, you know, and so one of the challenges we have now is that it's so systemic that we think it's normal. You know, and sometimes even when you're having conversations with people, and so this is one of the reasons I like one-on-one with African-American men, because, you know, even in my sessions, sometimes I'll say, look, I'm taking off my therapist hat. I'm gonna speak to you like a brother, because you know, sometimes we just need to have those, like Brother Shepsu said, those conversations with one another, because the the characteristics of this toxic masculinity, like dominance and self-reliance and competition, those are not characteristics that build communities. Those are characteristics that play out in individualism. And we are more a relational, community building kind of people. And so, so for instance, since my brother Philip is a basketball ref, you can have fun competition when you're playing sports, right? But competition doesn't always come out that way when you're dealing with life. And so we've got to help each other understand, the truth of the matter is, I don't need to be dominant over you. I don't need to be dominant over my wife or my children. I don't have to have that, because what I want to be able to do is to be in relation with you in a way that when I'm not around, that you can still navigate this world without having somebody trying to control who you are. And so now, what I think, when for men who ascribe to those characteristics pre-COVID, I can't even imagine the negative ways they're happening during COVID, particularly if they don't have other outlets. If they don't have other outlets, what I mean for that is that if they're restricting most of their time to home or to the people that are around them, then they're going to get the negative behaviors from those kind of characteristics. I hadn't done it for a while, but just a couple of weeks ago, I started watching the series Underground, that came out a few years ago. I kind of put it off because once, I didn't want to deal with those, the negativity of slavery, but I wanted to watch it just to be able to see what it was about, and also to see what the brothers have been talking about, because the word that I'm using lately for us is resilience. Mm-hmm. And some of the characters in that series were very resilient, even in the midst of the mess that they had to face. And so what I was able to recognize is that even doing some of that, because our Black men who were slaves learned how to treat Black women just like the white men were treating their white women, or like they were treating us. And so, which is not a good model to follow. It's not a sustaining model. It's not an honoring model. It's a dehumanizing model. But I also recognize that when you have Black men that can model something different, that you could be something different. Now, I cannot tell you where I learned this, but I know even at a young age, one of the things I learned for myself was I have no need to be controlled, and I have no need to control others. Mm-hmm. I don't know how I learned that. I'm guessing I learned that from my dad somewhere along the way, but that has helped me throughout my life. But it also says to me, the things that we learn at a young age, without a doubt, they play out through our journey unless we're challenged somewhere along the way. And so the toxic masculinity is not something that we need to ascribe to, but it is something we need to challenge, diminish, and defeat.
Brother Thornton, you got to jump on in here.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with every one of you all, with everything you said, especially from the buck breaking piece. I know from the time when I was an undergrad at the Virginia State University, just have to throw that out there. We learned about the different family system theories that we had in place, as social workers. But there was one that stuck with me in particular, the Afrocentric theory. And this is actually where I met Mr. Shepsu along the way, when I was active with the National Association of Black Social Workers, and the focus on the development of the Black family, the recreation of the Black family, the upbuilding of the Black family. And I think right now we all need to take a step back and look at how we are right now. Systematically, we know that we've always been at a disadvantage. But even though we were at a disadvantage, back in the days, our families were always one. We had that whole communal effort. We may not have been blood, we may not have been kin, but we were fictive kin. We had our long lost cousins from down the street. We had our families from back home, And I think we all need to go back to that because everyone played a significant part in specifically a black man's life. You know, for me, my father, he modeled how it was to be a black man. You know, my father was a man of not many words, but when he said something, you were going to listen. You know, and he always told us that hard work was what you know what you need to get to be. You need to utilize that to get to where you need to be. You know, my mom was also an integral part of my growing up as well. You know, they've been married for over 30 something years right now, and even to this day, you know, although no one is perfect, they still love each other the same way that they did from day one. And with that same love that they had from day one, that's how they raised my brother and I. And they showed us along the way, this is how you're supposed to treat a woman. This is how you're supposed to raise a child. These are the things that you're supposed to do. These are the people that you need to bring along the way. You know, it hasn't been, oh, I'm going to do better than you. You know, of course, as brothers, my brother and I, we had that sibling rivalry. You know, I was the little brother. I want to be bigger than the big brother, you know. But my brother taught me things along the way as well. You know, it was never, I'm going to pull him down. I'm going to keep him down. You know, and I feel as males, we all have to go back. We have to be that big brother to each and every younger brother that's out here and teach them the right way to go. You know, although they may not be blood to us, blood can, but we can also grab somebody by the hand and just say, "Hey, young brother, this is what it looks like to be a successful black male." You know, you don't have to go to college and get a degree. You can get a trade. You can be the best at whatever you decide to do, but these are the characteristics that we should stand by. And I remember looking at Roots, and you know, Alex Haley, that whole process with him was definitely something I enjoyed watching and seeing how he traced back his family, you know, his family genetics and well, excuse me, his family generations to see where he came from. And Kunta Kinte, regardless of what happened to him, this man never changed who he was. He stood by his principles as who he was as a man from what his father taught him. And it translated to every generation some way, somehow. And in order for us to fix this what's going on right now within our black families, we got to start with our own and change the culture of what's going on at this point in time.
You know, that's a good segue into our final question, because you have moved into interventions, things that we can begin to do holistically as we continue to go through COVID-19 and as we begin to invest in ourselves as well as empower our whole community. So this is the last question. What are some more holistic interventions that you all would recommend for our Black males as we navigate through COVID-19?
Well, brother, I think one of the things we got to do, as we talked a few times, we mentioned the word, you know, nation builders, and many of our ancestors were brought here, you know, during enslavement based off of their skill set, because they were nation builders back in Togo, Benin, Ghana, in Yoruba land, Igbo land, wherever they came from, and they brought their nation mentality here during and after enslavement. And after enslavement, we saw the Black homestead movement all throughout the South, Black townships. You know, we talked about VSU. I'm a Unionite. When we look at the Black college movement, when you're on those campuses, when you watch those stone, the granite buildings, they were built by the students.
Yes.
Okay? Built by the students. So we need to get our brothers, we're trying to work on this initiative right now at MLK, developing apprenticeship programs, developing skill set programs so that our people can not only rebuild the family, as Brother Thornton was going to say, but the family is the smallest unit of the Black nation. When we're able to have those skills, then we'll be able to develop homesteads, whole communities, and then to be able to develop a strong economical base that would lead to Black sovereignty here in the United States. So that's one of the strategies I think we got to work at, plan on right now during COVID, and break those projects out throughout the entire nation.
Great.
Yeah, that's thank you, Brother Shepsey, because I think for one of the things we could help is for individual Black men to understand who they are and what they have to offer. Who they are in terms of what are their passions, what are their goals, what are their objectives, what do they want to what is their purpose. And I think one of the things, this is one of the things that can happen during the pandemic, to take the time to really do some self-assessment, because we have to move from complaining about our jobs to creating jobs. And so one of the ways to do that is to really tap into who you are and what you have to offer, because when we do that individually, we can offer that to the community. Um, and individually around even our self-care. How are we taking care of ourselves in terms of what are our diets, what are our sleeping patterns, how are we sleeping, how are we resting. um, I even tell some of my clients, so if this is something that you have a desire in, whatever it may be, then why don't you research or read about an African American hero or shero that has already done that work, so that you can be inspired to do that work, that because one of the things I think that's helpful for us is that we have to be intentional about helping us see us,
Yes.
and to be honest with you, as Brother Shepsu already talked about, a lot of this has already been done. One of the things, and I'm trying not to come to tears, but I get so frustrated that I was never taught my history. And I remember one time I was with a group about we were doing diversity, and they said, tomorrow bring in, something from your lineage. And I remember going home, and I remember the next day I brought in a blank piece of paper to say, I don't even know my history, to even bring something in. But now we have access, right? I can search it out, I can read it, I can get it. And so what I'm saying is that a lot of this stuff has already been done. So when I say to tap into somebody who's already done it, not only does that give you the know-how, but it gives you the confidence, because you will be able to see somebody else like you that has already done what you are looking to do. And if it's not something specific that you're looking to do, you have the confidence knowing that we have a history of people that have created whatever you want to think about, whatever you want to think about. So I think if we help people understand that they have purpose, that they are somebody, that they have passions, that they have something to offer to the community, then that alone builds self-confidence, that builds resiliency, and it could be, the things that will help them de-stress, so that they're not continually fighting depression and anxiety. And this is in addition to some of the coping skills that we teach them based on mental health.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I would contribute and suggest that Dr. West was noting earlier, that, during this time, we are kind of relegated to being in the same environments consistently and have to do the same things. But I would suggest that you develop an internal reset button and for the monotonous, so that the monotonous doesn't become mundane. My mind goes back to when I used to play video games, and there was a reset button on it. And the reset button was used so that when the game started malfunctioning, you hit the reset button and it went back to the beginning, so that it would function as it was intended to function. And I think that's kind of where we kind of get in some pockets and some spots where we're going through this pandemic, and we have to do the same things over and over again. And sometimes we start losing interest and that excitement and that passion. So developing that internal reset button keeps us passionate about the things that we have to do repetitively, so that they don't become mundane. So take some time to develop some type of coping, whether that's going outside, taking a walk, changing your environment, doing some things out of the norm that doesn't cause you to get in this funk of like this Groundhog Day. Find your internal reset button.
Great. Brother Thornton.
As much as to everyone was saying, you know, I really think that self-care is the biggest thing that we need to focus on, especially as Black men. You know, oftentimes we carry a heavy load. You know, we don't know how to take a break sometimes. You know, we want to do everything. We want to provide. We want to run and take care of everybody and everything, but oftentimes we forget to take care of ourselves. You know, and with this pandemic, we have to look at how, you know, not only it's affecting us mentally, but how it's affecting us physically with our health as well. You know, go get that blood pressure checked. Go make sure that you're not diabetic. Get your cholesterol checked. Get a well checkup to make sure that you are physically doing well at this point in time. Because, you know, we're being stuck in the house. We're not as active as what we used to be, you know. And I really think that even going out to doing things like getting a massage, going to a chiropractor, or, you know, much as Mr. Moore said, going out for a walk, you know, we can't all congregate how we used to, but, you know, we have to do something small. It doesn't matter how minute it may be, but something that's out of our normal activity that can take our mind off of the stresses that we may be facing for at least 5 minutes, you know, even if it's just walking up and down the stairs or walking our driveways or talking to our significant others or calling our friends on the phone. We have to do something that's going to take our mind off of the everyday stresses that we're facing, because if we're not well mentally and physically, what else do we have to offer?
And Eric, just because we're in the house doesn't mean we can't still be physically fit. And we may not have the means to buy the gym equipment, but you got to pack out 24 bottles of water. Take that and lift that, you know?
Yeah.
Tap into that creativity, you know, and work out in your home.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, what a treasury of knowledge and wisdom you all have shared. It is just, it's real Black of us. I always say that it's real Black of us. You know, from Brother Shepsu talked about us being nation builders, and Brother Phil just came back and talked about be creative. We were brought to America because we are creators. We are nation builders. And in COVID-19, it's time to do what Brother Moore said, reset that button, find those juices, and go to flowing. And I just want to give all of our panelists one more chance to give us a parting thought. And it's been a great dialogue and conversation.
Yeah, I'll be very brief. You know, I'm a history, you know, buff, and 100 years ago we were confronted with H1N1, the Spanish flu epidemic in 1917, 18, spread all throughout the world from World War I. But we had Trump just left, but we had another racist white president in Woodrow Wilson. The rise of the Ku Klux Klan was happening, lynchings all throughout the South. But as Brother Philip Moore said, the duality of confusion, you have clarity. So we had from the Spanish flu, we had the Harlem Renaissance.
Yes.
We had Richard Van Der Zee. We had Ida B. Wells. We had the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. We had some of the greatest poets, Louis Armstrong. So they've represented the race man and race woman, Magdalena Walker, John Mitchell. We had race women and race men that were doing the work during the Spanish flu and the lynchings, and we survived it. So we have a blueprint, Black people, and it's nation time.
I just got to get in and jump in because you put some of those women, but I think about 100 years ago, Bishop Ida Robinson, who in Philadelphia started churches and bought on Oxford and Broad, the $75,000 building for her people, and Mother Horn in New York. We thrived 100 years ago, and it's time for us to do that again.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Eric.
No, I would just say, you know, we have to act. at this point in time, we all have to act. We have to put in some type of work, whether we're out there in the field and, physically working with people, or, if it's just research, we all have to do our part. Genetics, it's in our DNA. We are great people. It's embedded in our code. Like Mr. Shepsu said, we are those builders. We are those community builders. It's all within us. We just have to take our steps daily. We have to move forward and continue to keep a positive outlook. It's not going to be easy, but, much as he said, after the Spanish flu, what came afterwards? We will be great. We always will be. But sometimes we just have to remind others that, hey, look, it's hard right now, but it's always better on the other side. So we have to keep moving forward. I feel that spirituality it's a big part for me. Remain faithful in whatever faith that you may be, representing, but definitely remain faithful to yourself as well, and stay true to yourself in this point of time.
I would say, each of us, Black men, have been put here for a specific purpose. There's a reason why we're here, why we're still here. We've lost many of our brothers during this time, and we mourn their loss, but we're still here. And the question is, why are we still here? There's a reason. So I would echo what Dr. West said earlier, in that, take the time to discover, and I'm gonna use some bad English, discover who you be, discover why you be, and then be who you be.
And Philip, I would say that's not bad English. It's bad English for others. It's not bad English for us.
Yeah.
That's our language. That's our language.
And I would just, just agree with my brothers. This is a time where we can find our passion and our purpose, so that, people are saying post-COVID, and what I'm saying is, I'm not saying necessarily post-COVID. I'm saying let's create our new normal. Because it's not going to be the old normal. You don't want to go back to the old normal. What is going to be your new normal? And the new normal could be you being, understanding your passion and your purpose and living that out. Because that alone, when you're able to do that, that alone will help your mental health. And so I agree with all of my brothers, as we move forward. Let's just be who we have been created to be.
Yes. I mean, thank you all again. I want to go back to something Brother Shepsu said, that we have to have that dialogue about Black manhood. So this is just hopefully a beginning. It is an amazing chemistry in this dialogue that has been captured, and I hope that it was engaging and enlightening and empowering to all of our viewers. I want to take the time to thank our sponsors, the Boys and Girls Club of Metro Richmond and Greater Richmond SCAN. For more information for any of these panelists, we want you to visit our event page on Greater Richmond SCAN's website. I'm telling you, any one of these brothers, these Black voices, can empower you to be who you have been designed to be. And we need to, I know we want to hear Cornel West, and God bless Cornel West and Michael Dyson and all of those, but right in Richmond, we have some great voices, and you've heard them tonight. So I want to thank our viewers. My only announcement is that we want to make sure that you are checking out Black History Week schedule of events on the Greater Richmond SCAN website to see everything that is happening throughout the week. It's been a great dialogue, and I say to you, peace and blessings, shalom. And until next time, have a great night.